Hello everyone. It seems a long time since I last offered you a reflection. It's good to have the opportunity today. At the moment, our lectionary readings are reminding us of the Easter story. There's nothing odd about that. We need regular reminders of Jesus' sacrifice and what that means for us. This morning's memorable episode, which we find only in the Gospel of John, shows Jesus doing something unlikely. Unlikely, that is, if we didn't know Jesus. Deirdre is going to read it for us.
I'm going to read from the Gospel according to John, chapter 13, verses 1 to 11. Now before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The devil had already put it into the heart of Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray him. And during supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from the table, took off his outer robe, and tied a towel around himself. Then he poured water into a basin, and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel that was tied around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered, "You do not know now what I'm doing, but later you will understand." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." Jesus said to him, "One who has bathed does not need to wash, except for the feet, but is entirely clean. And you are clean, though not all of you." For he knew who was to betray him. For this reason he said, "Not all of you are clean."
His disciples rarely, if ever, call him Jesus. They call him Rabbi, or Master, or Lord. The society and culture in which they were living was very hierarchical, from the emperor down, although of course the Jews found it difficult to accept the authority of the Romans. But they had their own hierarchy, with the high priest at the top, and then the council of elders, called the Sanhedrin, and then the Pharisees, priests and Levites, the religious leaders. Less official, but no less powerful, were the rich landowners whose wealth brought them the respect which tends to go with money. We mustn't, of course, forget the puppet ruler of the time, Herod Antipas, and his courtiers, not much respected, but grudgingly obeyed because they had the power of Rome behind them. For the disciples, the true authority was Jesus, their Lord and Master. And in this scene, we find Jesus doing exactly what masters did not do. Not only did he distribute food and drink to them in the form of bread and wine, whereas one would expect servants to wait on the master at table, now he does the unthinkable. He gets up from his place at table, fills a basin, surely a servant's job, and begins to wash the disciples' feet. That was something the disciples would have considered the work of a slave. However often you might bathe, and I frankly have no idea how often that was in Jewish society, your feet would become dirty in no time. With open sandals, essential in the intense heat of Palestinian summer, walking on unpaved roads, one's feet were dirty within minutes of stepping outside one's door, and in that heat, probably fairly quickly sweaty. You either had your feet washed by a slave or servant, or by someone who really loved you, perhaps your wife. It was what Mary of Bethany lovingly did to Jesus in the week leading up to the crucifixion. The disciples were, not surprisingly, astonished at what Jesus started to do. Not only surprised, but shocked and possibly even horrified. It totally upended their understanding of how society was supposed to work. The man they were coming to regard as the Messiah, the Son of the Most High God, was on his knees before each of them, washing off the dirt of the Jerusalem streets, dirt which would have contained the powdered remains of animal dung mixed in with the dust. No wonder Peter is aghast and he protests, for no one loves Jesus more than he, despite his tendency to say the wrong thing and, within a few days of this episode, to disavow the man he has declared to be the Son of God. When Jesus explains the significance of what he is doing, Peter does a 180-degree turn and asks for a whole body wash. Not necessary, says Jesus. If you have bathed, and we have to construe from this that the disciples had, or else that they were clean by virtue of his love for them, or even that he had actually baptized them at some point, well then, only your feet get dirty straight away. By washing their feet, Jesus symbolically makes them completely clean. All, that is, except Judas Iscariot, whom no amount of washing could cleanse. We at St. Mark's have occasionally imitated Christ by performing the act of foot washing in church on Maundy Thursday. I have to confess that it wasn't a part of the service I relished much. It seemed to be crossing some sort of boundary, though I'm not sure which. Feet are somehow rather intimate. We hold one another's hands sometimes, usually those of people we love or care for, but the touching of feet often has a sexual connotation, an initial invitation to intimacy of a different kind. Now, of course, there's absolutely nothing of that kind in the washing of feet, either by Jesus or by worshippers in church. It was Jesus' way of expressing his love for his disciples. And so, in church, we take a deep breath and wash one another's feet because we love one another and because we are following Jesus' example. The washing of another's feet is an act of love and of self-abasing service. It's symbolic of the sort of action which should characterize our behaviour towards our fellow human beings, but which, like the washing of feet, takes some resolve to do. Washing feet is, after all, a pretty simple thing to do. It doesn't take much energy or even much time, unless, like Jesus, you have 24 feet to wash. There are so many little acts of love, or at least of Christian kindness, that don't take a great deal of time or energy either. Giving someone a lift when you weren't intending to go out. Doing someone shopping when you've already done your own. Spending time on the phone listening to someone's problems when you just wanted to watch that film on TV. I can't believe I'm alone in having to be firm with myself sometimes and serve other people's needs when I just felt like being lazy and selfish and doing what I wanted. But I so often find when I have done a kind and loving act for someone, I am glad to have done it, rewarded by their gratitude and a further strengthening of the bond of friendship between us. Rewarded too with a contentment of having done what I know Christ would have me do. In the end, serving is a joy. We need to remind ourselves of that when we just want to hide away. I'll finish by reciting, don't worry, not singing, a verse from a hymn we love to sing at St. Mark's. Richard Gillard wrote, "Brother, sister, let me serve you. Let me be as Christ to you. Pray that I may have the grace to let you be my servant too." Words to take deeply to heart, surely.